Hi, my name is Adrian Rădoi, and I'm the founder of Extreme Integration, an online education platform where we teach high achievers the formula for purposeful living. Today, I'll talk about what I learned during the past 5 years or so about the importance of nurturing the most important relationship that we'll ever get to have and develop in our whole lives. And think about this as being a relationship that you cannot get out of. It's something that you get born with, and for good or for worse, you will get to live this planet also in this relationship. So if it's not intuitive, I'm talking, of course, about the relationship that we get to develop with ourselves. And even if it might sound a bit creepy or strange, this is actually a relationship that we have with ourselves. Because, like with all other relationships, we talk to ourselves. We have all sorts of dialogue in our own head, right? We have our own narratives. We sometimes praise ourselves when we do a good job. Sometimes we punish ourselves. We have negative voices in which we are judging certain actions and so on. So, the importance of building this relationship was for me obvious only when I had no choice but to go within and actually start to discover who I really am. Because in my case, being forced by a personal crisis to go within, it was nothing short of revolutionary what I discovered, right? So at first, it started with a very challenging way of dealing with myself, if you want. I didn't like what I found. Most of the discoveries that I made were not things that I knew how to make use of at the time. But now, in retrospect, I understand how important it was to start building trust in my own decision making, to start being more honest with myself. And all this nurturing of the relationship that I have with myself translates today in me being able to build more realistic plans to achieve my goals more consistently and be able to also inspire confidence in others. So, for some reason, we tend to neglect this relationship, or rather, we take it for granted. Like most our intimate relationships, like the relationships we have with our close family members, with our spouse, with our kids, we take them for granted. We think that just because they are there around all the time, it means that they are by default supposed to be there, and the relationships that we get to develop with them are somehow natural. Well, though it might seem like that, imagine the quality of your day to day life experience if you would actually invest in building those relationships up. And before starting to see how you can improve the other in order to cooperate better with them, look at yourself as the sole point of change, of real change that you can actually enforce. Because when you look at yourself, it's much easier to improve things because you know exactly what you can change and where it doesn't make any sense to push that much, right? So I would say that at the center of every other relationship is the relationship again with ourselves. But the problem is that it's very painful and not really intuitive all the time how to develop this relationship. And we try to compensate by doing for others what we typically cannot do for ourselves. It is, however, the best gift we can make to others, right? Is to present them each day with a better version of ourselves. Because this is the most altruistic gesture I can imagine, right? Imagine that you have this kind of spectrum in which you have like egoistic desire, in which you invest everything for you, and then the altruistic extreme when you do everything for the benefit of other. You always have to find a middle way, right? And typically, sacrificing for others might seem the easiest choice to do because it acts as a way to compensate for the lack of attention that we attribute to ourselves. However, if we want a truly win-win strategy for going through life, it's to improve ourselves as a forcing function for serving the ones we care about most the best way possible. In this way, everyone wins, right? They win because they get to benefit from an improved version of ourselves, and we also implicitly get to benefit from that version of ourselves. And I would argue that in life, the most important thing is not what you achieve in terms of materialistic possessions, in terms of goals, in terms of physical aspirations, a new house, a new car. Rather, the most important thing is to become the type of person who can achieve whatever you want to achieve on a routine kind of basis. And I'm not saying just have a lot of money and buy stuff. I'm saying that life itself, for me at least, it's a journey of becoming. Who am I becoming along the way, and what kind of satisfaction I get from pursuing the daily activities which inevitably take me to a certain destination. We rarely think about this. We take things as they come. We tend to go through life on cruise control and simply complain when we superficially evaluate the so-called negative implications of a certain life situation or a certain event that happens to us. But I really believe that if we dedicate our efforts towards becoming better human beings, ultimately everything is there to serve us. Everything is there to improve our capabilities, our trust in ourselves, and our ability to serve others. That's the most important thing, in my opinion. And labels such as good or bad, positive, negative, they tend to lose meaning because they only mean something if we don't have any purposeful destination or any purposeful goal to help us contextualize the experience itself. If you're just running on cruise control in life, for sure, having something bad happen to you you will consider it as bad and you would like to avoid it. But I genuinely believe that life is perfect in itself and it cannot be improved upon, which means that whatever we get to experience is the exact thing that we need to experience at that moment in time, so we get to evolve. What does it mean to evolve? Well, it means to ultimately increase our levels of consciousness so we can actually enjoy living more. Because living is a gift. And being alive is not something we should discount, right? For a certain materialistic goal in the future that we want at the detriment of experiencing life as it presents itself. And I was talking about extreme integration and how this could be like a formula for purposeful living, right? Well, extreme integration has two components. It has radical acceptance and purposeful action. Radical acceptance is, if you want, the traditional path or the traditional promise of spirituality, of the spiritual path. This kind of perfect equanimity that you can go through life and be okay with whatever is, whatever happens. I personally was forced to go that route because of a personal crisis, which ended up with me losing my mother at the end of 2023 in December. So my whole project for the 4 years in which she fought cancer, was to find myself and find the proper resources to allow me to just be present with her as much as I can, especially in those last weeks and months, which became more and more difficult, right? Of course. So, though I was forced to accept life, what I learned serves me very well today, because even today I'm being faced with all sorts of challenges, and I don't judge them at face value all the time. I don't challenge them. I don't negotiate with life. I don't challenge the necessity of being prompted with a certain situation, because I know that this is futile. What I know is that whatever happens already happened. By the time I analyze it, what happens is already there. So there is no reason really to fight it, to negotiate with it. Rather, to honor it, to even be grateful for it. Because I know that there is a huge learning opportunity behind any situation, especially the most challenging ones. And I'm saying that, of course, from my personal experience, because the most challenging days I had in the last week, I was spending with my mother in hospital, for example. That week taught me a lot, taught me more than I could have ever hoped for. And I was I was able to learn from it because I was present, because I was able to allow it, because I was not scared to face the difficulty and the pain that I was feeling. I was feeling the pain, yet I was able to stay fully present with what was happening to me. And that was an amazing achievement. It took me about 4 years to be able to actually fully embrace the situation as it presented itself, because I knew it will lead to this destination. So I did my best to prepare for it. And I was very happy to see that after investing, I don't know, years on end on listening to spiritual conversations between Eastern philosophers and Buddhists, and listening to Eckhart Tolle for 6 hours a day for, I don't know, the first 2 years or so, just because it was the only thing that gave me some relief. All this investment in myself allowed me to take my own hand, basically, and have this kind of assurance that everything is okay, that life itself is the ultimate safety net that I can ever dream of or hope for. And I really felt that, right? It was not just trying to convince myself, yeah, okay, this is bad, but yeah, maybe, I can look at it from a different angle. No, this radical acceptance thing, this first component of extreme integration, was enough in itself to allow me to see beyond the pain, beyond the suffering, to transcend the pain and the suffering and find love even in those grim and dire circumstances, externally speaking, right? Now, I know that this is also not something that most people can achieve in life. Radical acceptance is something very difficult to do. And to be honest, I would not have been able to achieve this kind of acceptance and okayness and equanimity with how life presented itself if it was not for this very specific crisis in my life. So, that to say that suffering is the best teacher possible, because it forces you to be present. You cannot go around it. At some point, if the situation is recurrent and your external circumstances present the same in every day, and they are worse and worse and worse, at some point, it's an inflection point, right? You have to either accept what's happening to you and move on or integrate that experience, or run away from it. And because I had different responsibilities in my life, and I had a son who was born in that period, and I felt responsible also for my wife, not to leave her alone in all this situation, I knew that I have to overcome my own identity in a way. The identity of someone who was protected by his mother, who was comforted always by her, and now I had to be born again and raise, as someone who can be a pillar of stability for those that need ultimately also support, emotional support. It was not only me in this situation, of course. So now looking back, I'm really grateful and I appreciate this incredible unconscious sacrifice, how I choose to see it, that she made for me, so I can actually wake up and live life in the best way possible and actually enjoy everything that happens and not challenge life for throwing me, a difficult situation from time to time. I'm simply allowing everything to be as it is because it already is. It always and already is as it is, right? And this is when I started to look at my mind as a tool for allowing me to interpret reality. Specifically, in my situation, now when I look back, I make out of what happened to me a very positive experience. I recently learned that it's called, when you have like positive growth after a traumatic experience, it's called post-traumatic growth, which is, I think, what happened to me, right? Because post the passing of my mother, I felt this urge to serve others and translate what I learned about the human nature and the human mind and the capabilities that we have to frame experience in a positive way with others. This is why I'm hosting this kind of videos, why I'm publishing this kind of videos on this channel, despite some fears that I have, of course, of exposing my thinking and sharing from my personal situation. But ultimately, when I saw how fragile life is, there is really little to fear in life. And that brings me again back to the programming of the mind, right? The mind was meant to protect us, and it's simply a tool. The mind is not meant to interfere with how reality unfolds and how life unfolds. Life unfolds in the best way possible all the time, even if we cannot see it in the moment. Our mind is simply a byproduct of a recently developed part of the brain, and now we identify with our thinking, with how we view the world, and we tend to take decisions based on what the mind thinks it's good or bad for us, right? Based on some, let's say, survival oriented needs that our brain evolved to care about, right? So now I distance myself from how my mind interprets things, and I choose to interpret positively things, right? Because I know that life is always as it is, cannot be improved upon. I cannot really control things that much. The only thing I can control is how I interpret things, right? Shakespeare said it's not thinking is not good or bad, but nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And there are a lot of variations around this theme, and it's true, right? Now back to my equation, to extreme integration. So it has radical acceptance as the component, which in itself could help you just go through life in the best way possible. But that typically comes only if you are faced to deal with a personal crisis and experience radical acceptance by yourself, first person, you're forced into actually giving in to reality as it unfolds. But if you don't want to wait for a personal crisis, you have also the second component, which is purposeful action. Purposeful action means that you accept everything that happens because you know it will lead you to be able to make use of what happens to you and transfer or translate that thing, that experience, into some action which serves a greater purpose, right? For me, the greater purpose is to serve to the best of my abilities 16,000 people by, I don't know, by the age of 40. What does it mean? It means reaching to people like you on YouTube. It means one-on-one coaching. It means touching people's life in a positive way, because this is what I feel drawn to do, right? This is my purpose. And part of this, serving this purpose, I'm taking purposeful action, which is, for example, recording this video, which I do it despite of the fear that I face, right? And I accept the fear. I accept the fear as part of the equation for enabling me to actually reach the destination that I have, right? The purpose that I have is more important for me than the shortcomings or the limitations that I currently have when it comes down to making this kind of videos. So I encourage you to reflect on what's important to you and why is important. Why do you have these aspirations? And ask yourself why several times until it becomes clear that ultimately what you care about is to have a peaceful life and a calm experience of the day to day. You don't want cars, you don't want money, you don't want a better house, you don't want a better job. You simply want peace of mind. And that peace of mind can come today, right now, if you look at things from the right angle. If you have something to aspire to, if you put yourself in the service of others. Because then, if you know that you have this kind of purposeful goal to achieve or aspire to achieve, then everything that happens to you is not good or bad. Everything that happens to you is a necessary stepping stone for you to reach that destination, right? Without this purposeful goal, you would default into judging the situation you are being presented with in the context in which it's presented without being able to see how it feels this puzzle for you to reach that destination. But more on that in another video. For now, if you want any kind of support in your own personal transformation journey, just click the link in the description and book a free coaching session. I'd be more than happy to help. Until next time, make the most out of every day.